say?
Do we also have hearings? But it sounds like
Yes, we do. We have hearings. Welcome to everyone to the Capital Budget Subcommittee. We're starting with our PAYGO decisions. We will follow that with our budget hearings. Moving us through the PAYGO decision document is Mr. Gray. Is that right?
Laura.
Actually, I believe Laura Hyde is
I didn't see you. Hey, Laura.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So the document before you is the decision document for the general fund capital appropriations in the operating budget called Pay As You Go or PAYGO. And the analysts will present their agencies in document order, starting with the Department of Planning on page 1.
The Department of Planning on page 1, DLS recommends concurring with the governor's allowance.
Mr. Chair, move to concur.
Second.
All right. Move to concur. Motion is to concur. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
On page 2 for the military department, DLS recommended concurring with the governor's allowance. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Mr. Chair, move to concur.
Second. All right. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
All right, on page 3, there's the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. DLS recommended concurring with the governor's allowance. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Mr. Chair, move to concur. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
On page 4 is the Department of General Services PAYGO. This is actually a Maryland Environmental Service Eastern Correctional Institution Cogeneration Plant Upgrades Project. It's $7.3 million over budget, and therefore this money would help to basically close that gap. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Mr. Chair, move to concur. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Next recommendation there is for the Department of Natural Resources on page 5. The recommendation there was to delete the funding for the helicopter, $6.3 million in general funds. The agency disagreed, noting that it has resumed operations and has flown a number of flights. The Senate rejected this particular recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I concur with the Senate to fund the helicopter.
Second.
We're going to fund the helicopter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Delegate Rice, helicopter.
All right, then on page 6 is an additional first house action. This is to restrict $100 million of the Baltimore City direct grant funding from the program Open Space State Share until the submission of quarterly spreadsheets showing the status of projects. That was adopted by the Senate.
Move to reject.
Yeah. Andrew, do you have an additional
I
color
have
page?
you would move to reject that item if that's your interest, and then I can take you to the color page.
Okay, so the motion is to reject that item. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. And I think we have an additional color page. If Mr. Gray, you can put that on your screen.
Yes. So this item here is also related to the Baltimore City direct grant. What it does here is it conditions how the $6 million would be used. So it's not restricting it in this particular part of it. The $6 million would be used for $4.4 million in the sense of unallocated funding, and then the remaining amount will be reflected here for the projects shown. In addition, there's a restriction of $100,000 until the submission of a particular report by the Baltimore City Recreation and Parks, and that's information about Patterson Park and about the swimming pools.
Move to adopt the color page. Second.
All right. Motion is to adopt the color page. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Gray.
All right, back to the decision document on page 8. It's the Department of Agriculture. DLS recommends concurring with the governor's allowance. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Mr. Chair, move to concur. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
And on page 9, the Interagency Commission on School Construction, the DLS recommendation is to concur with the governor's allowance. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Chair, move to concur. Second.
Motion is to concur. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
On page 10, we have aid to community colleges. DLS recommended concurring with the governor's allowance. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Mr. Chair, move to concur. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Next, page 11 begins the items for the Department of Housing and Community Development. The DLS recommendation was to concur with the governor's allowance. The agency concurred. However, the Senate took some additional actions. On page 12, The first item that the Senate did was to add language restricting funding within the Project Core program for specific projects in Baltimore City.
Mr. Chair, move to concur.
Second.
Concur with the items on 11 and number 1 on 12. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Okay, the second item that the
Dr.
Senate,
Proctor, you're not on mute. Go ahead, Emma. Thank you.
okay, the second item, the Senate added language related to funding in supplemental budget number 1, restricting the funding for the Homeownership Works pilot program. The department submits regulations on how they're implementing chapters 702 and 703, which is the appraisal gap from historic redlining financial assistance program.
Mr. Chairman, move to concur.
Second.
Commissioners concur. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
All right, moving to page 14, so the Department of the Environment PAYGO. DLS recommended concurring with the governor's allowance. Agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Chair, move to concur.
Commissioners concur. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. I think those are all our items, so I'll move the full PAYGO report.
Second.
All right, full PAYGO report. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. All right, I think that's it. Let's just take 1 minute break. We can, Sheree, you can let everyone in for our first agency, which is local jails. So just give
Will
1 minute.
do. I'm just gonna, so everyone knows, I'm gonna hit mute all so that we don't get any feedback.
Thank you.
All right. Josh, we'll stick with you. Let's go to.
If we think we have everyone in, we can start with our hearings, starting with the local jails and detention centers. Our budget analyst is Mr. Cash. Welcome. Let's see, is Jacob Cash with us?
It looks like we might have lost him.
Okay. Well, I'm sure he's going to pop back on here in a minute. If not, we can move to do Coppin and take jail second. Let's just give him 1 more second. Do you see Mr. Klein with us? So let's go ahead and do Coppin State University, and we'll, Mr. Klein is our analyst.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, so just bear with me for 1 moment, please. Hey, can everybody see my screen at this time?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Great. Excellent. Thank you very much. So we're going to begin with Coppin State University. And what you have before you is the budget summary. Coppin has 2 items in the CIP that are recommended for funding as shown on the cover page, which include the Percy Julian building renovation for the College of Business and the residential hall. The Percy Julian Science Building is currently vacant and previously housed the Departments of Natural Sciences, Mathematics, and Computer Sciences, which have been relocated to the Science Building as of 2015. This project had been fully funded in fiscal 2022. However, as a result of construction market conditions and on-site related issues, the project is now behind schedule and over budget. The fiscal 2023 budget provides $2.5 million in GO bonds to complete construction of the facility. As a result of the delay, the project is expected to be complete in March 2023 instead of August 2022. The second project, which begins on page 3, is the new residential facility. The capital budget includes $0.9 million in GO bonds to continue design of the new residential hall. This project had been pre-authorized to receive $9 million in fiscal 2023 to continue design and start construction. However, based on the project schedule, only $900,000 will be needed in fiscal 2023. This project has been reviewed by the University System Board of Regents, which in June 2021 approved the use of up to $46 million of auxiliary bond funds to support the project, as shown in Exhibit 1. While USM anticipated providing up to $46 million in auxiliary bond funds, the 2022 CIP has a total of $18 million in state support and $38.4 million in support from USM. It was noted that without this state support, annual dormitory rates would increase from approximately $6,300 to $9,500, which would price the students who wish to live on campus out of the market to do so. A housing study was completed over the course of 2021 to determine the need and demand for additional on-campus housing. As shown in Exhibit 2 on page 5, which looks at the on-campus housing capacity of Coppin and its peer institutions, Coppin falls toward the bottom when compared with its peers in terms of capacity to undergraduate enrollment. Exhibit 3 on page 6 shows the demand for on-campus housing from academic years 2016-2017 through 2021-2022. As shown in the exhibit, prior to the pandemic, the demand for on-campus housing exceeded the institution's housing capacity. Exhibit 4 on page 7 looks at the historic and projected growth in full-time enrollment. Prior to the pandemic, in fiscal 2019, full-time enrollment at Coppin increased, growing for the first time since fiscal 2012. However, with the onset of the pandemic, full-time enrollment has fallen sharply over the last 2 fiscal years. The housing study anticipates full-time enrollment to grow as a result of changes to admissions practices, academic programming, and enhanced marketing, as well as the construction of the new residential facility. However, despite some level of documented need for expanded dormitory capacity, DLS recommends against funding this project as the state does not generally participate in the financing of dormitory facilities, which are revenue-generating auxiliary facilities. The DLS recommended actions are found on page 2. As previously mentioned, DLS recommends deleting funding for the residential hall and approving funds for the Percy Julian building renovation. This concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer questions.
Okay, thanks for the great analysis. Any questions for analyst? All right, hearing none, we are joined. I see our president is here. Mr. President, it's great to see you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's great to see you. And let me start by saying a good evening to you and to all of the respective committee members. On behalf of our faculty, staff, students, and alumni of Coppin State University, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to come and speak with you very briefly. And I also want to thank Mr. Klein for his remarks and his report as well. As noted, Coppin State University is moving into the final phases of renovating our Percy Julian Science Building. And we are in full support and greatly appreciate the actual recommendation of DBM and DLS to support the additional $2.5 million to bring our Percy Julian renovation to completion. And I want to thank them for that support. With regards to the residential facility that was also spoken about, within our new strategic plan, we are putting a greater emphasis on the student experience here at Coppin. And as it was noted, between 2015 and 2019, there were nearly 600 students who applied to Coppin State University and who were admitted to the university. But however, they sought on-campus housing and we were unable to provide that housing. Those students did not stay with us. And so that is a significant factor in our presentation, that the actual data and the committee would understand the actual need for additional housing for Coppin. You know, it's also important to note that there are national studies and statewide studies that show students who live on campus have higher grade point averages, higher retention, and higher graduation rates. Those studies also show that universities that have a higher on-campus living population also have higher enrollment. Those studies also indicate that large commuting populations are strongly correlated with lower retention rates, lower graduation rates, and a lower overall satisfaction of college experience by students. And so the university trusts that the subcommittee will continue to recognize the university's compelling need to increase our residential housing. And therefore, we would respectfully disagree and oppose DLS's recommendation to delete the $864,000 in the GO bonds for fiscal year 2023. And we would also respectfully disagree and oppose their recommendation to the committee to consider deauthorizing the $3 million, excuse me, of GO funds that are currently in the 2000 fiscal, excuse me, the 2022 capital budget for this particular project. A couple other points that I want to make that I think are very important. DLS indicated that on page 8 that the state does not participate in the financing of USM dormitory type of facilities or auxiliary generating facilities. However, we wish to remind the committee of the fact that the state has substantially participated in funding other auxiliary facilities on Coppin's campus in the past. I also want to make note that in the chart where we were compared to sister institutions, it is important to note that all of those sister institutions that were highlighted have higher on-campus living student populations than we do here at Coppin. And all of those institutions have higher enrollments, higher retention, and higher graduation rates. That is precisely why we are committed in asking for additional housing, because we know, and all of the data shows, that increases the overall enrollment growth, retention, and graduation rates of institutions. We have made good efforts in our intentions to retain more students and to graduate more students. Last year, our graduation reached a historic high of 32%, well on our goal of reaching a 6-year graduation rate of 32%, understanding that's up from 24% about 5 years ago. So we are moving in the right direction. And I would just add lastly, that when you look at our data, our freshman cohorts have grown by nearly 12% between 2015 and 2019. And an enrollment issue is not what we face at Coppin, it's a retention deficit. And we know that living on campus has a profound positive impact on a student's retention. And so accordingly, we here at Coppin State University respectfully request a favorable report of this very important subcommittee of the recommendations for DBM and for DLS to continue supporting the completion of our Percy Julian project. With regards to DLS's recommendation regarding our residential project, Coppin State would respectfully request that the subcommittee allow this project to continue to move forward by adopting and maintaining the funding allowances that are reflected in the governor's 2023 fiscal year budget. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will stop and answer any questions that you or the committee may have.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Thanks for your response. Any questions for our president? Delegate Bridges.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. President Jenkins, good to see you. I know you always have a lot going on Coppin's campus. And I just wanted to say that we were trying to support to see if you all were going to the NCAAs, but unfortunately you just fell short. So I just wanted to just note that we were trying to support you and watching you on television and wish you much luck next year.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Jenkins, Delegate Bridges and I were texting back and forth during the game. It's the most fun I've had watching college basketball all year. So thank you for that. Even though you didn't come out on top, it was still a great game.
Well, listen, thank you very much. And I was just going to say that there was a point in the second half where I started to go find my old felines and see if I could lace them up and hit 10 or 15 points, but that wouldn't have worked.
We're all happy you didn't. So thank you for that. Any questions? Any other questions for Dr. Jenkins? Doing a great job over at Coppin. Seeing none. Thanks for being with us, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You all take care and be well.
Thank you. All right. Do we now have Jacob Cash with us?
We do.
Yes, Mr. Cash, welcome. Local Jails and Detention Center.
Yes, let me share my screen. So for local jails and detention centers, in fiscal 2023, there is a request for $2.6 million for one project. And I will actually go straight to that project. For Exhibit 4, you can see the total scope and state share. The scope has actually increased while the state share decreased. This is because of some reworking of the project and what exact spaces will be in there. So the state is actually not going to be required to spend as much as previously anticipated. There have been some project delays with this associated with that scope increase. The planning was moved back by about 7 months, but the construction schedule itself has been moved forward so that construction will complete ahead of time. The main issue that I'd like to talk about for this grant program is the fact that previously authorized projects have been delayed and a lot of funds have been unused. Exhibit 5 displays that since the 2017 CIP, there's only been $3 million in expenditures from this program, while there have been about $30 million in added authorizations. So that's only spending 10% of the authorization, and we're asking for more information from DPSES on why that is, which projects have completed, and why there has been a slow rollout of these grant funds. Also in Exhibit 6, you can see that out-year expenses for this program have increased since the previous program. Specifically, fiscals 24, 25, and 26 nearly double. And we're asking for more information on this since a list of future projects has not been made public or published with the CIP. There is a recommendation to add committee narrative requesting quarterly reports on local jail populations, and DLS recommends approving the $2.6 million for the Frederick County project. That concludes my presentation, but if you have any questions or would like me to go into some inmate population statistics, I can do so.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cash, for the great presentation. If you don't mind taking the presentation down so we can see if there are any questions. And I don't see any questions, so we can move to our agency. Secretary Green is here. Mr. Secretary, you can just get to the issues that were raised. That would be great. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the House Capital Subcommittee. For the record, my name is Wayne Hill, and I'm the Deputy Secretary of Operations for the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. With me today is James Dickerson, Local Jails Capital Improvement Program Coordinator. The department appreciates its ongoing collaboration with the Department of Legislative Services, and we appreciate Mr. Cash's hard work and thoughtful analysis. The analysis contains 2 recommended actions, and the agency concurs with both recommended actions. The analysis also contains 2 issues with which we have provided responses to in our written testimony, and I will touch briefly on these. First, DLS asked the department to provide the status of projects where funds remain unencumbered or unexpended. There are 7 projects with outstanding unencumbered or unexpended funds, and we have witnesses from these counties to explain where they stand in the process. Montgomery County Pre-Release Center project is 100% complete, and the final invoice bundle has been submitted to DGS and is under review for payment. Construction on the Prince George's County Correctional Center project will be complete as of June 2022, and equipment for the project will be purchased on FY23. They're working on obtaining the contract eligibility letter, and once they have it, they will be requesting reimbursement. The Calvert County Program Space project is approximately 50% complete and is expected to be completed by June of 2022. Calvert County has indicated that they have not yet applied for reimbursement through DGS. The Anne Arundel County Holding and Processing Center is 100% complete, and we have been recently informed that they have applied for their first $1.7 million in reimbursements from DGS. The St. Mary's County Adult Detention Center project is approximately 35% complete, and they are preparing the first round of submissions to DGS for reimbursement. The Frederick County Adult Detention Center project went out to bid March 7th, 2022. They have signed their contract with DGS and anticipate drawing funds in the near future. The Queen Anne's County Detention Center project is at the 75% design and development phase. They have already signed the contracts required for reimbursement through DGS. Second, the department should update the committee on projects currently under evaluation that support programming of additional state resources. Kent County plans for additions and renovations to its detention center, expanding it and bringing it up to current ADA and ACA codes. This program is expected to cost $17,176,000 with an expected state share of $8,587,000. Prince George's County has a program for a community corrections complex to bring all of its alternative to incarceration and diversion programming into one location. This project is expected to cost $9,906,000 with an expected state share of $4,670,000. The Caroline County Detention Center submitted a program for a renovation project to expand their detention center and bring it up to ADA and ACA codes. The project is expected to cost $7,121,000 with an expected state share of $3,560,000. Montgomery County has a program for a criminal justice complex to provide a central processing / detention component and a restoration component for deflection and diversion. This project is estimated to cost $74,125,000 with an expected state share of $37,062,000. This concludes my testimony, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill. And I note that you do have some folks here from your department and the local agencies I expect that can also answer questions if there are any specific questions, but I think you've done a great job in running through all the local programs. Are there any questions for Mr. Hill? Delegate Proctor. You're on mute, Delegate Proctor.
My comment actually is to Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to move the money not used by local jails to Coppin for dormitories.
Fair enough. We're gonna have decisions in about a week.
Okay.
So we'll make sure we get with staff and you can give them that sheet and work on it at that time. But duly noted. Thank you, Delegate. I do know our local jails do a great job. Any other questions for our local jails or any of the representatives who have come to answer questions? I know we have Frederick County representative here, Anne Arundel representative with us, Queen Anne's, St. Mary's, and some other folks from corrections. So any questions? I don't see any. So Mr. Hill and your team, we thank you all very much for being with us, and you'll have a great day.
Thank you. You too, sir.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the Maryland Stadium Authority, and Mr. Klein is our analyst.
Actually, Mr. Klein can't come today, so he asked me to present it for you. I'm Patrick Frank.
Right. Glad to see you. Welcome.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. Where is this sharing screen? I cannot see it. Been doing this all session. Oh, here it is. Okay. Should be able to see the screen now. All right, and I'm just going to cover the first page, and if you have any questions about anything else, feel free to ask me. As you can see, the proposed appropriation for the Stadium Authority is $12 million. This is the Legislative Services Building that is being replaced. The DLS recommendation on that $12 million is to approve. There's also a $30 million pre-authorization in 2024. DLS is concerned that because of some increasing the scope, like some work in the tunnels that has to be done, and the supply chain issues, that $30 million may not be enough. So we're recommending increasing that to the pre-authorization to $45 million. There's also $30 million in 2025. That's $25 million for the construction project and $5 million for equipping the building when it's ready. Because of the nature of these things, there is a $25 million pre-authorization in this bill. DLS concurs with approving that. The status of this is that on Wednesday, there is an item before the board to approve a contract that would knock down the current building. And then they anticipate that in June, the board will get the big contract to build the new building. That concludes my presentation, and I can take questions.
Excellent. Any questions for Mr. Frank? Don't see any questions. So thank you, sir. That concludes the hearing on the Maryland Stadium Authority. We'll move to our miscellaneous grant program. Mr. Quist, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yes, I will be presenting the analysis for the miscellaneous grants. All right, you should all have the analysis up on the screen in front of you. The governor's capital budget includes funding for a variety of miscellaneous grant programs through GO bond funding. There is a total of 132 projects this year. and funding through GO bond funds totals $134.2 million. Of this funding, $36.4 million is going towards projects that the General Assembly had pre-authorized last year in last year's capital budget bill. Turn to page exhibit number 1 on analysis. This is giving a county by county breakdown of the funding for the miscellaneous projects. As you can see, Baltimore City is receiving the majority of funding in this area at about $47.6 million. The next largest county shares are Baltimore County at $13.5 million and Howard County at $11.7 million. And if you turn to the second exhibit, this is giving a similar breakdown by project type. So the largest share of projects social services related. There's about 25 projects totaling $31.3 million in that share, and culturally related projects, including museums and other historic sites, items of that nature. There are 34 projects totaling $29.1 million. The remaining projects are for a variety of purposes, including health, economic development related projects, education, local government initiatives, parks and recreation, and funding for several YMCA and Boys and Girls Clubs throughout the state. There are 3 larger multi-year commitment projects that are listed on pages 4 through 8 of the document. These are projects that the General Assembly has funded in prior years and have future year funding commitments. The first is the historic Annapolis restoration project, which is receiving $3 million in state funding in the bill in FY23. The recommendation for that project is to approve funding. The second of these projects is the Maryland Zoo in Baltimore. There is $4.75 million in funding in the FY23 budget, and DLS is recommending approval for that project also. And the third of these larger multi-year commitment projects is the National Aquarium in Baltimore. There is $3 million in funding in the capital budget bill, and DLS is recommending approval for that project also. Exhibit 3, which begins on page 9 of the analysis and runs through page 37 of the analysis, are 122 of these projects that DLS is recommending approval or approval with technical amendments. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all 122 individually, but there are project summaries in this section of the document for your information, and if there's any specific ones of those that you're interested in. The other item in this section of the analysis, Exhibit 4, is showing there was a total of 7 projects that the Department of Legislative Services was unable to receive documentation from the Department of Budget and Management in time for us to properly evaluate the use of state funds for these projects. And therefore, DLS is unable to recommend approval for those 7 projects. And lastly, I would just point out in the recommended action section, which begins on page 41, for the sake of space in this document, we did not include all of the recommended actions for approval. The only 19 that are shown in this document are the technical amendments, as well as the amendments to reduce funding for recommendations. With that, I will conclude my presentation there, and I can take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Quist, for the great analysis. Any questions for our analyst? I don't see any. We have some people here to testify. I'll remind the committee and the witnesses that witnesses have 2 minutes. Mr. Herbig from B&O Railroad, if you'd like to testify. I was going to name everyone. I'm not sure they're listed on my sheet, although I think everyone was signed up for written testimony. So let's do it this way. I think everyone's written. If anyone actually is here to testify not written, unmute yourself and let us know. Ms. Livingston, are you?
Yes, I'm here with the
Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. Great to see you. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. Delegate Barnes and members of the committee. Again, my name is Allison Burr Livingston. I have the privilege of serving as the Senior Vice President Chief Advancement Officer of your Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, who happened to share a special performance, including the chance to pick up the baton with some of your peers in the Senate and staff earlier today. We are sorry that we missed you. I know it was a long morning on the House floor. Please know we will be back. And as I shared there, I do want to start my 2 minutes by noting our thanks for your support of the arts and of the BSO, including transformational operating and emergency support to help the orchestra on a road to a brighter, more sustainable future, as well as our industry, as we all navigate the ongoing and very real challenges associated with the pandemic. As noted in our written testimony, which I believe you have in front of you, I'm here today on behalf of the board, musicians, and staff of the orchestra and the trustees of the Baltimore Symphony Endowment Trust to request your support and restoration of the capital allocation of $800,000 in fiscal 23 for the BSO. These funds will be used for a full escalator replacement as part of a broader modernization of the Joseph Meyerhoff Symphony Hall. We sincerely apologize for our failure to submit additional project information in a timely manner to DBM and DLS. We respectfully request that you reject this recommendation, which we understand as a result of that delay, but do want to report that that has since been rectified and believe that project information is now in all necessary hands, hopefully your own as well. The Meyerhoff has been the BSO's primary home since its public opening in September of '82, as well as a community and economic development resource, hosting regional performing and presenting organizations, attracting talent and tourism, and serving as a hub for local presenters, graduations, fundraisers, commemorations. This coming September marks the 40th anniversary of the Meyerhoff. Unfortunately, while the BSO has invested significant endowment and private capital to upkeep and renovate to the tune of $7 million in the past decade, our home still requires urgent attention, and many systems and facilities are still original to the building and failing. This includes the escalators. They were installed in 1980. They are 11 years past their original life cycle, and they currently comprise one of 3 primary elements of our public conveyance system, and being accessible to 78% of the 2,443 seats in the Meyerhoff. Not only are they frequently out of order, but the model is obsolete, with parts not only difficult to source, but we actually have to make them from scratch whenever the escalators break down, which is frequent, which is clearly expensive and not efficient or effective. With the state's support, we are poised to replace the 2 escalators, disassembling and removing the existing components, installing totally new components, inclusive of modernized units that are also fully code compliant. The total estimated cost of the project is roughly $900,000, can be completed within 12-month window. And in addition to immediate improvement in accessibility and experience for the 400,000 to 500,000 patrons that access the facility, inclusive of BSO and beyond BSO programs, we anticipate reaping significant annual savings from the project, including reduced maintenance costs, as well as energy efficiency gains associated with a more modern system, which are critically important as we look to what we need to do on an annual basis and deliver on other promises made to the state. So again, we appreciate the state's assistance in such capital projects. We appreciate consideration of how to bring a facility such as the Meyerhoff that's critical to our shared cultural, tourism, and economic landscape into the 21st century and ensure that we can continue on the road paved in 2019. Thank you for your consideration of a reinstatement and favorable vote on the current capital allocation to the BSO. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Burr Livingston. Any questions for the BSO? All right, well, I think you're in great shape here. I want to let you know, and our chair McIntosh is on. She wouldn't have it any other way. So I think you're in good shape.
Your chair now has her own baton, so she can conduct us along the way. So
thanks for all your work you do. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you all very much.
Anyone
Chairman
else?
Barnes?
Yep.
Excuse me. This is Richard Herbig. I was just able to unmute myself. So I'll wait my turn.
Okay, you're up. 2 minutes.
All right. Thank you very much, Chairman and Vice Chairman, Mr. Chang, and committee members. My name is Richard Herbig. I'm the president of the Friends of the B&O train station in Aberdeen, Maryland. Thank you for letting me testify today. Friends will be completing the worksheet very soon, almost immediately. I can read to you a quote from preservation architect, James Wallen. The design of the station is deliberately picturesque, typical of its era, and asymmetrical. A brick base with shingle walls, broad, low hip roof, wide sheltering overhangs supported by wooden brackets. This station is eligible for inclusion in the Federal Registry of Historic Places. I personally have been involved with this project since it was condemned and saved from demolition. The first phase was relocation. CSS required us to move the station further away from the track to improve visibility at West Bel Air Avenue and the train intersection. Second phase was the rehabilitation. Significant structural stabilization occurred inside the interior of this building, which was built in 1885. Phase three, proposed phase three will basically include completing the structural upgrades in the freight room, returning the south eave to its original configuration, installing the bead boards under the trackside overhang. Phase three will replace the existing temporary rolled roofing, the badly deteriorated slate roof with matching slate, and reinstalling decorative zinc ridges and finials. Soon, the United States will be celebrating its 250th anniversary. Funding of this, the Friends request, will allow us to restore the station to its 1885 appearance in accordance with MHD preservation easement. I respectfully request that the station receive $500,000. We have our architect's estimate, construction estimate is $416,330, but with the cost of materials and labor and inflation, we have rounded it upwards to $500,000 for your favorable action and consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thanks for your work at B&O. Any questions for B&O Railroad?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Delegate Johnson, on the same project. I know that you did not receive one letter of information that was somehow in our electronic age today, not sent to Senator Castley's office. When he was made aware of that, they were working on that today to get that in. So I do wish you would consider leaving that in the budget. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Delegate. Question, Delegate Corman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to see, this is a train project. Could we get the Transit Caucus's views on this?
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
No, I might have started with Delegate Grice. He just sat up.
Fair enough. Any other questions for this great transit project?
Best and only, sir. B&O.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your work at the B&O. I think the only other person I see on here who's not part of the committee who might want to testify, Brent Barnes. No relation to me. Mr. Barnes, are you here to testify?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am. I'm sorry, I seem to be having some video trouble down here, so I can't work through that. But good afternoon, Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Brent Barnes. I'm the first Vice Commander out at the American Legion Post 223 here in Sykesville, Maryland. This is our first application for funding coming through this LBI process. So I don't have any capital budget summaries or anything like that to go along with this. For those who don't know, the American Legion was a chartered organization incorporated back in 1919 as a patriotic veterans organization for veteran support in the communities. The Sykesville Post was actually established in 1946 and has approximately 1,000 members going across the Legionnaires, Sons of the American Legion, and auxiliary members. We're active in the community out here supporting the local Legion baseball community, Boy Scouts, as well as the local Sykesville town. The request that we were putting in for is for $250,000 to do renovations to our building to improve the critical infrastructure, such as our roof, our air conditioning, a rear retaining wall from a structural issue that's going on, along with security and access renovations to be able to bring it up to a code that's supportable by our folks and increasing the safety and security of our staff. That's the quick down and dirty, sir. I know I only had 2 minutes, so I apologize for no video, and that's I'll turn it over from there, sir. Thank you very much.
Great. That's great, Mr. Barnes. Thank you. We don't share any lineage, but we do share technology difficulties, so I can empathize with you on that. Any questions from Mr. Barnes? Hearing none, I think that concludes our hearing today, subcommittee. Thank you so much. See everyone soon. We're adjourned.